Hello everyone, it's Tony here. Today I want to talk about the Four Temperament theory, which was mainly developed by David Keirsey in his works Please Understand Me 1 and 2. I'd highly recommend checking out the updated version of that book. It's a great resource to use to learn more about the personality types and just personality theory in general. And one of the main things that he did was he took Plato's concept of the four temperaments, so the guardians, the artisans, the rationals, and the idealists, and he applied it to the MBTI and its own terminology, thus producing the SJs, the SPs, the NTs, and the NFs. Now, there's plenty of different temperaments and groups and quadrants to learn from, especially if you get into socionics. However, this is the big one. This is the main one. It's very important to know, and it's been there since ancient Greece. It's influenced tons of different philosophy and works of art and literature. And one of the big ones that can, at least I like to relate it to, is Lyman Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz. So in this video, I want to kind of go over each temperament step by step, list some of the traits and attributes that I see and that I use, and relate it to one of the four main characters of The Wizard of Oz. So, hope you enjoy. Let's begin with the SJs, or the Guardians. So, generally speaking, they make very reliable, loyal, dependable friends. They'll always have your back, especially if you've been their friend since childhood or just a long time in general. As long as there's been a history behind that relationship, it's something that they cherish very much. They want to preserve and maintain those memories and improve upon it, improve upon that relationship. And in that sense, the SJs are generally very traditional, and they want to uphold values, traditions, things that have been proven to work in the past, because they'll have this mindset of what has worked in the past will also work in the present and the future. And that's something that should be recognized and valued in society. And it's something that they want to pass on towards the next generation. So things that they've learned in their upbringing, in their families, they generally want to pass on that information and knowledge to their own children or to the next generation. They strongly believe in stability, security, balance. It's something that they strive for in life, even in their bodies. Homeostasis is a great word for the SJs or the Guardians. And in society, they generally want to belong to a community. They appreciate order, especially social order, and they have a strong yearning to belong to communities. So this can be anything from like being part of a band or supporting a band or a political institution or a club in college or school or some exclusive financial club. You get the point, right? They want to be a part of community and sort of like fulfill their duties and tasks, not only in that community, but in society as a whole. They strongly value authority figures, people with a healthy, positive mindset who can sort of point the way forward in a healthy and positive fashion, people with credentials, with degrees, with proven experience. This is something that they really value in society, especially if someone has earned their spot, so to speak. They generally don't like people that skip ahead or cheat or risk takers, and generally they have a very cautious mindset towards anything new or random or unknown, something that hasn't been proven to work. They generally like tangible things, things that can be repeated or routine, or things that can be improved upon and perfected. And they can often be ridiculed because of this, because sometimes they can be hesitant to take that step forward into a new area or expertise. And generally what happens is that people that ridicule them are risk takers, or they can make not very well thought out decisions themselves that often lead to disaster. And very often, those same people fall back to their SJ friends because they know that they're the most dependable, secure, stable people out there. And the SJs, they generally just want to have a peaceful, healthy, long life with as minimal amount of chaotic and random events as possible. And that's just something that they generally strive for. They look for gratitude and express gratitude towards others, and they expect that in return. As far as the Wizard of Oz, the character that most correlates to the SJ or the Guardian temperament would be Dorothy. And Dorothy's, of course, the main character. In a sense, she's the most important character of that work. But she represents the human element. And basically, her goal is to get back home, right? To get back to that community because she's in Oz. It's in a very random, chaotic place. And towards the end, she just gets sick of it. She just wants to get home, back to her community, back to how things were. And this is generally reflective of the SJ Guardian temperament. All right, so next up are the SPs, or the artisans. From a young age, they're very driven with this lust for life. They want to go out and see what this world has to offer. What is this all about? So anything that is fun or exciting or stimulating is something very attractive to the SPs because they'll just have this mentality of life's too short not to live, not to have fun. I want to go out and see what this is all about. So they are usually very active in that sense. They can be very spontaneous in the actions that they decide to take, which are mostly based on their impulses, which are very strong, which they have since a very young age, and only get better over time and more clear. At the same time, they don't generally do well with routine or boundaries or rules or limitations. They'll have kind of an urge to break that and go beyond them, to really push themselves to the limits sometimes. But at the same time, it's invaluable for them because it's learned experience. Experience and going out and doing a thing is one of the things that they treasure the most in life, because they can say that they've actually done that, and at the same time they appreciate and respect other people who likewise have been in the situations that they're talking about. They've actually done that, they've actually experienced that, and then they can pass that on to someone else. And in a sense, they're more like real to the person. They don't generally like people that are just completely theoretical or just like, what if this, what if that. They like and appreciate people that have gone out there and done the thing that they're talking about. The SPs generally have this ability to be completely focused and driven, much like an artist or a musician can fall into this state of complete rapture and sort of be one with their instrument or one with their tool, and to be completely lost in the moment and just be one with the moment. So they like to follow their passions in that sense. They want to make an impact on others and on their environment, and they appreciate when they can get an impact in return. Because, like I said, they're constantly seeking that stimulation and sensation that makes them feel alive, that spark of life. They generally have two kind of default mindsets where they can be very cool, very chill, zen-like, but when they're in the moment, like when they're playing a sport, for example, they have this ability to turn on the switch and be 100% completely focused, very fiery, very impassioned about what they're doing. So generally, they're very high spirited. Like I said, they don't like routine or rules and limitations. They also hate missing out on things because they understand that once something has happened, it can't be repeated, it can't be experienced, and missing out sort of really brings them down in that sense. And they really value independence. That's how they express themselves, especially through their bodies, and they appreciate freedom, especially in a physical sense. They feel most at ease in a big, wide, open space where there's lots to explore and lots to experience. On the other hand, they can be a bit claustrophobic and paranoid when they're confined to a small space, and that's something that generally frustrates them, or it really doesn't go well with the SBs and the artisan temperament. As far as the Wizard of Oz, the character that most correlates to the SPs would be the character of the lion, because the lion is the character that is seeking courage, right? So just like the SPs, they want to have this willpower, the will to act, to put their step forward, and just have the strength and the inner willpower to not be afraid, to have courage, and to do what needs to be done and experience what needs to be experienced in order to learn what this world is all about. All right, so now the NTs, or the rationals. From a very young age, these people will be driven by an insatiable hunger for more knowledge and more information. Anything that can be added to their very logical frameworks of minds excites them and stimulates them. And because we're dealing with the N, so the intuitive aspect of the MBTI, they're going to be more interested with the conceptual and abstract, and that will influence their thinking and their deep thought as well. Again, from a young age, they're going to be interested with how things work and how things connect with other things. So systems, the human body, what is my hand, what am I? What are these things around me? They're constantly asking why and what if. So reason is something that they value very highly, and they trust their ability to reason because it aids them in coming to a logical understanding of themselves and their world around them. So they generally have this mindset of what is real is reasonable, and what is reasonable is real. And through that lens, they like to look at the probable outcomes of things through logical investigation. They like to parse through things, look at the components of what makes a thing. Like the bones make a skeleton, which makes a human body. They'll look at things through a very objective, logical, intellectual lens, where the emotions are sort of set aside. And when they're young, this can be very confusing, not only in understanding their own emotions, but especially in understanding the emotions of others. And it's sort of puzzling to them why other people can be so sensitive and so emotional. What is driving those other people? Why are they like this? Why are they not logical like me? So that can be confusing, but of course when they get older, when they get more in tune with their own emotions, they'll obviously be more developed. But throughout their lives, they're always going to sort of value logic and reason above all. They'll constantly be analyzing, calculating. They'll be interested in systems, how things work, and the possibilities of things. So They're intrigued by the concept of the new, of experimenting conceptually, of inventing for the future, what the future beholds. Again, what are the probable outcomes? What is possible? What if this happened? And of course, they're going to do that through conceptualization, right? Uh, like I said, they generally value reason. They want to constantly seek knowledge, and something that will sort of manifest in their mindsets generally is they want to have some sort of sense of achievement, whether it be strictly through a logical understanding of life and how the world works, or just in society as bringing forth a new invention or a new concept. That's something that the NTs, the rationals, deeply strive for. So in The Wizard of Oz, the character that most correlates with the NT's rationals would be the character of the Scarecrow, because of course the Scarecrow desires or is seeking for a brain. And this correlates to the rationals because they value the logical capabilities of the brain and the possibilities and conclusions that can be made through a purely logical understanding of the world. And that's sort of comforting to them to have this deep internal conceptual framework of how things are, and what compromises things and systems, and why do they operate the way that they do. All right, and finally the NFs, or the idealists. So what I've personally noticed is that these four personality types that fall into this temperament, they're generally the most shy and reserved children at a young age, because they're constantly processing their understanding of the world through deep feeling and emotions, and they will very often pick up on the intuitive energies of not only themselves but the other people around them, and so other people will very deeply affect them, and they'll be sort of on this quest to find their own purpose and identity in life through this lens. The way that they process information is through a very axiological lens, where they're constantly considering what is morally right and wrong, what are the ethics of the situation, what are the aesthetics, what is the value, and how does it apply to the bigger picture of what it means to be a human being in this world. And they'll be fascinated by other people's mannerisms, their ways of speaking, and they'll very, very quickly pick up on connections and similarities between different types of people, and find patterns in that. This helps them come to a more holistic understanding of what it means to be human. And of course, this is very overwhelming, and it doesn't really fit in with the different positions or places that are molded into society for human beings. NFs always want to look beyond this through the conceptual and the abstract, and very often they'll be fascinated with this idea of romanticism, and especially with the concept of the sublime, looking at what is beyond the ordinary, what is beyond the mundane, and why is this all here? What does it all mean? Who am I, and why do I exist? Like, what is the purpose of life? Even from a very young age, they'll be, considering and trying to process this deep question. They'll very often have vivid imaginations since childhood that they keep with them throughout life, and their intuition, in a colloquial sense, is something that they value almost above all things. It's because it's hard for them to turn it off, and it's how they come to conclusions and understanding of what another person is saying and what they are not saying. Group settings, who they are as a person, their own identity, their struggle and their strive to be recognized in society for doing the right thing. So they have a very deep emotional understanding of what it means to be human, and they kind of want to share that with the world, and um, offer their own perspectives and ideas about what can be changed in society to lead to a better, more prosperous future where we don't have the problems of like poverty and everything that's wrong with the world that's going to affect the NF's mentality very deeply. So of course, in The Wizard of Oz, the last character will be the Tin Man, and the Tin Man desires a heart, and this is reflective of the Idealists because, of course, this is a temperament that deeply desires to understand the matters of the heart and of humanity, and how it affects everyone on a deep global scale. So this is all I want to say about the temperaments for now. I hope you enjoyed this analogy of the Wizard of Oz characters with these temperaments. I highly recommend rereading that work, or even watching the movie and sort of coming to your own conclusions yourselves. But yeah, that's all I have to say for now, and thanks for watching.